Hey guys, in this episode, we're going to cover a true story of getting your first customer, scaling to more customers, and also the future of 3D printing. Hey guys, we've got Uriah here from Cubee, and what's really exciting is that he built a 3D printing as a service platform, and he has 1,900 people on it that are doing 3D prints for him. So I want to ask you, how did you build up such a large group of people willing to do your 3D prints?
Yeah, so I think I'll start by saying they don't necessarily do 3D printing for me. That's not how we see it. They utilize a tool that we give them, or they utilize the different sets of tools that we provide them to grow their own 3D printing service. And one of the tools is a marketplace, a 3D printing marketplace, which is the home base of Cubee. It's a really good question, and I think right, getting started is something that that is always the hardest question. And I think for us, I will say, yeah, 1,900 is a number that we're really proud of. But when we started off, we thought we were going to be this marketplace. Originally, we imagined like an Airbnb for 3D printing. And then it's really cool that I brought 1,900 3D printers eventually, but you also have to bring the people who will buy 3D printing services. And that's not always, that does not always go together. So even though we have like a really big achievement here, there's also a challenge. But we worked around that because we kind of shifted from being this regular marketplace into a company that provides tools for 3D printing businesses or up and coming 3D printing businesses to grow. And the way we got started was, first of all, my partner, my co-founder, his name is Oded. We're friends since high school, and we were living next to each other. We were both like students and bartenders, and we always thought about instead of going to business school, we would start a startup together. And he was an industrial designer, and he had his own printer. And then as he kind of grew with it, more and more people needed his services, and there were more and more needs that he had, and we were lucky enough, or I guess that's what most people should do, to have someone that is really a part of that community and has the real need. So we knew, first of all, what the problem is for our user and what we can do to build it. And for us, the first products was just a really simple place for people to send you a 3D file, pay for that file immediately, get an instant price quote, and like not have to do this whole emailing back and forth. So we were lucky enough to start off by giving these people, manufacturers, a really good tool to work with, that they wanted. And the second thing was we had this platform and we were kind of working on it and building it and doing different user tests, and it was still under construction when COVID hit. In 2020, it was like we were bootstrapped. We were both doing different. I was selling art at an art gallery. He was like still a student and a bartender. And COVID hit. We both lost our jobs. But 3D printing kind of hyped because all of a sudden you had all these different segregated areas all over the world, and people were running out of specific supplies, especially tools to fight COVID with. So face masks and all these different, people were afraid to open doors back then. So door handles. And what we decided to do was, even though our platform was not ready at all, we launched it without it having any financial transactions on it. So completely free, and just told people, hey, if you have a 3D printer and you can help your local community in any way, you can sign up to this platform. We see where people need things, and then we ask local manufacturers to create them. It's all voluntary, right? But everybody was sitting in their house. Everybody wanted to do something to help. And it was great. We started, I'm in Tel Aviv right now. So we started in Israel. We had areas that were completely closed off, and we were able to manufacture parts inside that area, which was really cool. It was all free. It gave us a push. It got people to know us, and it brought us the first few hundred microfactories to kind of join and get to know the platform. After things kind of chilled out with COVID, we kind of came to them. We emailed them and we said, hey, listen, here's what we're going to do. We've built this product to be, your kind of print shop or a cloud print shop. And what we hope to do now is, if you want, you can close your shop. Right now, it's just idle. No one can see you. And if you want, you can transform it into your kind of homepage business. You can be a part of Cubee and start getting paid for orders that you receive, whether you bring them in or we bring them in or whatever. That was how we got started. And then the second part is the tool was free. So if you use the free version of Cubee, you can sign up, you can open your print shop. It's a really, really cool tool for people with 3D printers who want to make money, but it doesn't cost you anything to have it unless you're actually making money. So initially we're taking a 10% cut of orders. That's it. So at the end of the day, that gave us a really easy way to bring them in. We did some social media marketing, a little bit of Facebook, a little bit of Google, basically saying, have a 3D printer, start printing for people in your area, or grow your 3D business, profit from your 3D skills. That was like the main goal that we used. Is basically, here's a free tool for you to use. If it helps you out and you make money with it, great, we're going to be happy. But that was it. We had a lot of people saying, whatever, it's free. I'll sign up. I don't care. I'll spend 5 minutes. And oh, this is actually pretty cool. Other people didn't think it was cool and signed up and never used it, right? You have those users as well. But that was how we got started. And I think the tip that I would give anybody is if you have a specific user base that you're going to work with, starting off by giving them a tool that could really help them out, could get them to know you, could get them to like you and interact with you, could get you to kind of have a base of people to work with. That's a great way to get started. And then they already trust you. You already given them something. They've been exposed to you. And once you come out with like your bigger product, you already have a user base to kind of come out to and talk to and work with as you develop what you're building.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it was really brilliant how you identified that there was this local manufacturing problem and you were able to just get a bunch of people to sign up for free because it was local. And that really shows that you were good at overcoming a lot of the roadblocks that people have at the beginning of not knowing how to get their first customers. You really just have to hustle your way into finding how to get them. So
Yeah,
after
go ahead.
Yeah, so after you had the first couple sign up and you knew you needed to start scaling this thing, how did that look like?
It was really hard. It was really, really hard, and it still is really, really hard. We wanted to focus on the United States, so our tech team is all in Tel Aviv, which it's a startup capital basically, and most startups are kind of US centric in that end. So it's harder even because you don't have people that you can just go talk to, give someone a call. You kind of have to do everything online, use data. And first thing we did was do a little bit of advertising just to test the water, to see how many people can actually join us. And at the same time, we tried to raise some capital. We got accepted to an accelerator that invested $125,000 in the company, and that gave us the privilege to be able to actually do some social media marketing. And because we were marketing a free tool that you only pay us if you get paid, right? Because it's a marketplace model. Then the customer acquisition was really cheap. So okay, we have $125,000. Let's put $1,000 in social media marketing. We did a lot of work on it. We're creatives, right? We're all in the arts. We did everything ourselves, everything in-house. I kind of watched a lot of YouTubes on how to market, and we were able to create. We were lucky enough to have friends who did photography, and we brought a few friends over and brought some printers over and did a photo shoot. Called it and did our first profit from your 3D skills ad, just an image of some of our friends with 3D printers and cool 3D printed things, and that was it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm wondering, what was the biggest roadblock that you never anticipated, and sort of how did you overcome it?
We did a lot of shifts. So I did mention the fact that we originally said, oh, people need 3D print stuff. They're always looking for a cheaper alternative. People have 3D printers. Let's just build a place where they can meet. Well, bringing an end consumer to buy a service and to pay for it, right? Because bringing the manufacturer, okay, yeah, it's a cool tool. Like they're very engaged. They're looking for things like that. It helps them. Great. Somebody who needs to 3D print, there are giant print farms out there and cloud services. We had no idea. We got started. We were novices. I literally went to my girlfriend's brother who worked at Google and asked him, how do you start a startup? What do I do? And he's like, oh, you got to meet a tech guy, you got to meet some developer and bring him along and like make him excited about it. And that's what we did. But we didn't know anything. So bringing these people like to pay, that was a huge roadblock because they did not come as easily. So within our community, great. Inside Tel Aviv, that area, it worked fine. But then to market to students, which was our initial market in the United States, for example, that was super expensive and we lost a lot of money on it. And eventually realized, okay, this is not a market where we can build, a company that could raise millions and then tens of millions, and the market is not big enough, or it's just the barrier of entry is too high and people can compete with us easily. So that was a hard challenge because, you already invested in this idea and you're like, oh, this is amazing. And then, oh, okay, we have to make a change. And what's hard is until you achieve some sort of product market fit where you feel like the market is telling you, this is really great, we really need this. And you look around like, oh my God, there are so many people who would say the same thing because there are so many businesses who are experiencing this problem, which is something that we're now finally feeling that like we're getting there, both with what we're providing with the manufacturers and with what we're providing the people who end up buying the services on both sides. We're like finally feeling it, and it's still not exploding. Like we're still not, my DM's not like filled with people saying, hey, we need access, give us, service. It's not happening that way. So those shifts to make that decision to kind of say goodbye to something that you worked hard on and then understand what you need to incorporate in your company to make it better and to actually make it succeed, like those small pivots, that's really hard. And the hardest part is that you do that pivot and it freaking doesn't help, right? You do that pivot and you're still kind of crawling. You still get that one order a day on your platform, like one client a day. Like, oh my God, I spent $20 in ads and I got $15, right? You got a $15 order and I only make a buck 50 out of that. So like, what is the business here? So that's, I think those were one of the biggest challenges. And the other side thing is fundraising, which is just so hard and so frustrating. And it's like, I don't know, it can really knock you down. It's like it's an emotional roller coaster because the whole concept of it is you got to meet like 100 investors. One might fall in love with you, but you just kind of, it's like speed dating, right? With a bunch of people that are way out of your league.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Tyler.
No, I'll ask one more. So I guess the last thing I wanted to ask before Vineet will ask his section is, so obviously there's lots of people in this 3D printing space, but you stood out and you got the investment while there's lots of other companies that didn't. I'm wondering, how do you think you stood out from the noise and actually sealed the deal?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We always had one foot in the 3D printing world, saying like we're in the 3D printing space, but our other foot was always outside of it. We were always talking about taking this closed off 3D community that is kind of working together and is like this micro economy and flipping it outwards and letting it kind of, or commercializing it or helping it kind of grow and bring in new clients. When I market Cubee outward, when I'm fundraising, when I talk to businesses, my whole point is I'm not bringing in people who need 3D printing. I go to businesses that have no technology, knowledge of the space at all, or generally, like even brick and mortar shops. Our main clients are plant stores, for example. We go to plant stores that are used to work with importers or work directly with China. And we tell them, hey, here's a really cool plant catalog. Like here are planter pots that are 3D printed. They're locally made. You can customize them any way you want. You don't have to order 500 of them and then wait or invest $10,000 in like your own whichever customized prototype and then wait 4 months for it to be shipped to you. That doesn't happen. You order 20, they'll get here next week. Put them up. See which one sells. Like order 5 different ones. See which one sells. Order 20 more of that and just keep going, right? And then that's when. So to answer your question, we are using 3D printing as a means to help businesses or help our customers just hack the supply chain, right? So we're not a 3D printing hardcore company. Like our software, our technology is not about 3D printing. We're a commerce solution. We're building a new method of commerce where products are locally made whenever they're needed and wherever they're needed, and they're fully tailor-made to their customers' need, which is like the vision of where the world is going with 3D printing. I didn't invent that, but I just think we're in like the place to make that connection. Like a lot of amazing things have happened. A lot of amazing entrepreneurs have already emerged in the 3D printing world, and we're able to kind of take all that knowledge and give these people tools for them to flip it and make this something that resonates with the world's economy. That's what I tell myself, at least.
I love that. I love that story, and I love the fact that you've sort of laid out that personal element to it throughout. And it's very, a lot of people can probably relate to that and that difficult journey. So thanks for that. Just zooming out a little bit, for my own personal curiosity, because I haven't interacted with the 3D printing world much, and for the other people who don't know maybe as much about it, can you tell us a little bit about the past, present, and future of 3D printing? You alluded to the future a little bit when you said that it's going to be more distributed, more more make it when you want it sort of thing. So it's more efficient, but maybe tell us this little bit about this journey of how it's been, how it's going.
Yeah. So there's the famous S curve. You guys know the S curve, right? That there's a huge technology hype. It gets really, really high, and then like it falls and then slowly kind of rises back up. So, right, just NFT just dropped here, or crypto just dropped, right? VR is like starting to come back now. 3D printing is like, it's here, it's on the rise again. 10 years ago, we would have sat here probably on Skype rather than in Zoom. And I would have told you that in 2023, you'll each have a 3D printer in your house, not lying around doing nothing, but you'll just order off Amazon and your product will be 3D printed for you, right? That was the dream. And it exploded in a lot of people's face because the technology did not live up. The machines were, the really good ones were too expensive, and the ones who were cheaper and like desktop printers just, needed a lot of tinkering with. They still do, right? Materials weren't as vast, like you couldn't have any, like now we have a million different types of materials for 3D printing, but they all have specific printers, or specific printers can do more, but they're really expensive, right? Most home printers can basically do, a few variations of plastics or bioplastics or resins. And then that hype kind of just like the whole system crashed. The entire industry, in a way, like there's always been one to put in like 3D printing as a commodity, and the other is the industry side, but the entire industry shifted to hardcore industry 4.0. So like now you won't find any factory almost in the United States, for example, that won't have a 3D printer for some form of use in the manufacturing process, not necessarily for the end product, but at least for some sort of prototyping, right? It's integrated into the industry. And that's what you don't understand, that the big 3D printing companies, the biggest ones, are selling to aviation companies and to automotive companies and to, like anything you can think of, like, right? Why do an injection mold of a Boeing plane when you only need 100 of those, right? It's so expensive to create the mold. Let's just like 3D print them with $100,000 printer. So there's that huge shift. And then with the community of the home 3D printers, desktop 3D printers, what happened, I think I talked about that a little bit, is this really amazing maker ecosystem emerged, like a really strong community of people who love this, and amazing product designers and amazing makers and creators. And it's just like micro ecosystems. It's not a huge market, but you have over 100,000 print shops across the world, so which is small to medium businesses that are providing 3D printing services, selling on e-commerce, doing whatever. And then there are tens of millions of products out there. So any product designer can probably design something, and it could be for 3D printing, and there are specific models that are made for it. So there are amazing marketplaces out there for digital files. It's a really, really amazing world to be a part of. It's a really strong community, but it's kind of like a geek economy, right? Cubee is exactly that pinpoint where we're saying, okay, there was this hype, it didn't live up. We're now in a place where production price of end consumer products, production prices are low enough and quality of those products are high enough. I mean, printers became very, very cheap, and quality became way, way better. And finally, like, there was this space of it's cheap enough and it's nice enough to be sold to end consumers. Like, you can finally make something that would be in a high-end design store, and a customer would walk in and it would be beautiful and they would love it. They don't know that it's 3D printed. They don't care that it's 3D printed. You could tell them it's a locally made product, right? You could tell them it is used with this like cool technology. It's a cool selling point, but they don't care. It's just the product is good enough and cheap enough to be sold. And this is our play. Like, we're only in that space. We're saying, okay, we can finally help make that shift using cheaper machines, really, really good high content designs, right? And a distribution network. And that way, these products make sense and they're actually being put out into the world. That's not necessarily the future. I think this is like the near future, and I think Cubee is a big part of that, but also, the entire community is going in that direction. But we were visiting Modix, which is it's a large 3D printing, like a 3D printing company that makes large printers. We were visiting them today, and he said something really cool when he talked about the vision. He said, our grandchildren are going to hear the story that we used to walk into a store and say, hey, that's a really cool sneaker, can I have it? And the salesman would say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have your size. Like, that won't happen anymore. So this is the future. This is the vision. The vision is instant mass customization. Everything will be completely fitted into the needs of the consumer, and it will all be integrated in technology. So I think marketplaces will have not only your size, but like your fit. It will be like it's not only 3D printing, it's just industry 4.0 or smart manufacturing in general, right? So your size will be already onto your phone. When you shop something, it will be tailor fit to your needs, right? You could do customizations like you could never think before. It will be super fast and super efficient and a lot greener because, a lot more, it will be localized. That's where that world is going. And I think that the smaller machines or the smaller creators will have more and more space in this world. It will no longer be these huge centralized distribution centers. It won't only be a distribution center. And if you ask me like what the vision is like, if 10 years ago I told you you'd have a 3D printer in your house and that imploded, I don't think that vision is ever coming true. You will not have a 3D printer in your house unless you like to fiddle with it. But you will have a 3D printer in your block because that's what you need. A 3D printing center, a legit center in your block that will cater to all of your needs. And slowly, more and more and more products will be manufactured this way, just because it makes more sense.
Very, very cool. I will say you touched upon the sustainability angle a little bit, and this one is especially kind of close to my heart. While I was looking up a little bit about 3D printing for for asking you some questions, because I know absolutely nothing about it. I read that the material used in 3D printing, the PLA, that's bio-based. Is that right? Are the materials actually better than you would find maybe an equivalent if it was a non-3D printed manufacturing process? And if so, if that is true, I feel like that may have, like, that part of the story, I don't hear about that enough, or at least maybe you can tell me does it get lost, or it's just there and I haven't heard it, and maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so here's the thing. First of all, it's better materials. Most PLA is made out of usually cornstarch based, right? It's a bioplastic. It's a lot more biodegradable than regular plastic. You also have normal everyday plastics in 3D printing, and especially in the industrial 3D printers, which are using many different methods. You're talking about what desktop FDM, they're called, desktop printers do. So they take the PLA, they melt it down, and they kind of reshape it. But you have all these different, gels and lasers making polymers into solids, and it's insane, right? They're printing tissues, like human tissues now. And some of those processes are actually very chemical, right? So you can't just say 3D printing is greener. PLA is better than plastic, and we use often PLA, but it's not green enough yet, in my opinion.
I see.
It still takes a long time. Like, it decomposes under very specific conditions, not just instantly. It's much better than normal plastic, right? It will decompose probably 200 times faster, but still, it's not almost there. But amazing things are happening. We are seeing now, factories or filament companies. Filament is the filling for, like, the material for 3D printing, that are going 100% recycled. So they're only using recycled plastics. They're only using recycled goods, and you have more and more of these coming. So we're not talking about opening these centers that would take tires that blow out on the highway in California and transforming them into filament. So amazing things are happening in this field. So even though we're already in a better place than traditional manufacturing, even though, like, some people would say, well, you transfer a small portion of the material, and that causes house gas, and then you have the whole processing and the energy the printer takes. So there's still, like, a lot of things to consider. It's greener, but it's going to get a lot greener. Like, the huge potential here is where it can go, because eventually, a print shop or a micro factory, like, we got to think of it as not only 3D printing, but a micro factory could end up being just, a shipping crate that has 5 to 10 different kinds of machines in it, in a computer, right? But on the back end, you can bring in recycled plastics, it can break it down, it can turn it into filament, and that's what we'll be creating. Like, plastic bottles will turn into products that are useful. That's where that world, that's the vision of this thing. Yeah.
That's super interesting. By decentralizing almost the manufacturing process, you can maybe also decentralize the collection process. Am I putting words in your mouth, or did you sort of allude to that a bit?
Yeah, that's you got it. You're there. And think about, like, each different areas and zones in the world can use and reuse different types of materials depending on what is there. Like, as humanity, we've overproduced so much, right? We have so much crap everywhere. We're going to start mining, like they're talking about doing urban mining soon. You're going to go into areas where people don't live anymore, don't need, or are desert, and you're going to start utilizing all these different things and materials and resources that we've already used up, right? And we're going to that's the whole point of recycling, basically. But you have companies now that sell 100% ocean waste as material for 3D printing. So each area, like, eventually, we're going to have houses that are being 3D printed using local waste.
Very, very fascinating. And I think that a lot of this conversation for me, especially, was super enlightening. Do you have anything you'd like to add? Anything that we maybe missed and didn't ask, and you wanna touch on?
Yeah, I'll say like maybe just from right, most people aiming like who will hear this are probably thinking about or early stages of starting a company, right? That's basically most of who we're talking to at the moment. All right, that's the so I think like the one thing, regardless of specifically 3D printing or anything that you do, it is so freaking hard to start a company, and chances are you're going to end up just shutting it down, which is like really sad because you build it. We've been really close to shutting down a few times, and statistically it's probably going to happen sometime in the future, but it is the most amazing like life lesson that I've learned. I mean, it is so incredibly hard, and we have to always like cut ourselves slack, because there isn't a day that goes by where I say to myself, I should have done more. There's like I give myself shit for not getting enough done, or failing at something, or not being good enough. So cut yourself slack, and if you're not having fun, change something about what you're building or how you're building it, because if it's just going to be hell, it's going to be hell sometimes, no matter what. But just make sure that you're loving it, because if not, stop. It's not worth it.
I think there's a great lesson in that. Yeah, that definitely resonates. I don't have anything further. Tyler, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think that's all. I'll stop recording now. So